First, I'd like to thank Elsevier for allowing us to do this talk. It's very, very kind of you to let me monologue for 20 minutes. So it's the title. So the first thing is I also want to thank all the people that do all the work, because essentially I just ask people to do things for me and they're very nice to do it. So we do a variety of kind of downstream systems and resources that are managed by our IT team. So we have people that work on a variety of things. Most of those are solutions. Also, thank you to Jeremy Gibson for chatting with me, who's part of Elsevier, about the possible connection between the Pure and the ePrints API. So first, why do we use Pure? So we've had Pure since 2017, and we use it to manage all of our research portfolios. So we have more than 6,000 people in there that are like active about, rather than just former staff as well. So we've got all the active people. We have over 180,000 research outputs. A lot of those were in our original ePrints repository, and now they put into Pure and it gets synced to ePrints. So we just add to that massive list of things that we have apart from our research outputs. We have over 9,000 awards and projects, over 9,000 activities, 1,500 prizes. So it's just lots of data, and it's good to have all this data and make use of it. And that's our main encouragement that we've had since 2017, was to try and get more people using it, because we have all these uses for it. But people only put things into the system if there's a use for it. So we have a rich data set, and Pure is really great because you can have all these linkages between systems. So you can have your project in there, and if you produce an output, you can put that link in there. But there's also assumed relationships, such as co-authorships on publications and things like that. So it's not just the relationships that people are creating, they're already there and being put in naturally. So it's just an amazingly large data set. So a quick overview of what our Pure looks like. So big black bar in the middle is Pure. We sync in our HR data from ResourceLink, and that just is all the post data of all our current and former staff. We also sync in all our PGRs and their supervision data that links to those staff data from our banner system, which is where we keep all our student data. And then we've got Aggresso, which is our finance system, and that shows all the post-award data into Pure. But we only have a subset of that, so it's just our research data that we put into Pure. And finally, we have our user-entered data, and this is just all the rest of the data. And this is stuff that you can't really force them to do, but it'd be nice if they did. So talk a little bit more about that user data. So they have to add their research outputs as data set. That's something we kind of make them do. They don't really have a say in it. But the rest of it is all kind of optional for them. But we all try to make it a useful reason for them to do it. So they have their biography, their ORCID, links to various things, like Twitter, LinkedIn, things like that. And if they're willing to take PhD students, and that all kind of feeds to our staff profile pages. And same as activities and prizes, that feeds to profile pages. Press Media doesn't, because we don't really validate that. So we kind of leave that in there just for them to sit and look at and be proud of later on when they're looking at their CVs. We also have an impact, and we also allow them to submit internal projects. Of course, we can't force them to do all these things. We just try and make it nice for them, give them reasons to, which I'll then come on to. So all the stuff that goes into Pure, but what do we do with it afterwards? We just leave it there? No, we take it all the different places. So we have ePrints, which is our public repository. So all our research outputs go into ePrints. We have an optional sync to ORCID that we try and encourage people to put their ORCID ID, and then they can enter once into Pure, sync to ORCID, and then I'm going to put it into two systems at the same time. We have our staff profile pages where we just take kind of key fields from Pure and put them into the staff profile pages. We used it for our ref submission, which was a delight, because I would hate to have made all those in an Excel spreadsheet and try to do something with it. So instead, put it in Pure, sync it up elsewhere, let someone else deal with it. The Pure portal, which unfortunately for us is internal only at the minute, after many debates. So we have it internal, it's behind our firewall. Staff, students can all use that and make use of that data. We'd love to make it external, but instead we have to sync to all these systems, which is nice in its own way, isn't it? And finally, we have custom software solutions, which I will talk more about in a minute. So that's all of our data that we have, and then we got all these uses for it to try and encourage people to put all this data in there to make use of it. So, I mean, I kind of regret this one because it's challenges and solutions. I offer no solutions, but sounds nice. So how do we persuade users to enter non-mandatory data, and how do you get leadership to support this, to get everyone to do it? So it's all about selling the benefits of enter this once, use many times. So they haven't got to be in constant admin tasks and bureaucracy. Just put it in there, and then we'll deal with it, and it'll go to all the other systems, and you won't have to do anything else. Get it right in one place, and you're all set. Also, we have to sell it to staff for like a personal reason, like appraisals, promotions, grant applications. If you've got all this data available to you, it's all in that one place. You haven't got to look through your emails and your calendar and go, what did I do last year? Try and make a CV, and I've got this grant application. How do I get my list of outputs? It's all in Pure, and we show them how to use the CV module and how to get that data out. We can use reporting if there's like more of a group that wants to do something. But we also try and sell the benefits of the information management and all the reporting and all the things you get up Pure to inform strategic planning for leadership posts. So we've got heads of schools, deans of faculties. They've got all this data. They should make use of it. Because it's really key, because if you can't make decisions if you don't know the full story. So how do we make use of all this data? So we have lots of connections to downstream systems, and that's just key for us to getting all that data in and getting it made useful for everyone. And because so many downstream systems use the data, it means there isn't just like a single point of failure. If we just had ePrints and just a connection there, there'd probably be one guy doing it, and then no one would know anything. But because we've got so many different teams working on this, they all know a little bit, and they can work together to build really like innovative solutions for things, which is just fantastic. And then finally, the users get to see the benefit of data from Pure being used in other systems. So it makes them want to use Pure more, and they like it more, rather than it just being like, I think I've got to put outputs in. It's really, really considerate. I've got to do this extra task, or it's got to be done for ref, or seeing Pure and all these other systems just makes them feel more comfortable using it, and they're happy to put this extra data in, which is just really nice, really. And it's less of a fight for us, trying to convince them to do these tasks if they see all these reasons to do it anyway. So the rest of this talk, I'm going to be talking a few case studies about how we use the Pure API. So the first one is we made an API attached to the API. So basically, it's an API proxy. I'll tell you why we did this in a minute. Basically, we have this proxy so that the downstream systems can access it. So we have the Pure API, so basically auth, and then we've made this SOTN API add-on, and then you can call the endpoints that the SOTN API has created, which is like a subset of the main API, which is weird, right? Why? So why would we do this? So there's kind of four main reasons why we do this. It's great for privacy because we do have various teams working on this downstream data. If they only see what they need to see, everyone feels much more comfortable with that. So it's just great for sorting out. They just get the public data they need to see. It also removes lots of technical terms. So in the Pure API, it's all named as however the developer teams have named it. But not all of our teams know all those names. Most of the teams don't use Pure. They just want the data from it. So they have no idea how Pure works. So it's just great to be able to go, oh, let's just call it whatever we want. So instead of calling external organizations, you can just go like people outside. I don't know. You can call it whatever you want. It doesn't really matter. And that's really great. It also simplifies everything. So if someone wants, like for the staff profiles, for example, you want a list of everything, but the people, their activities, their outputs, their prizes, all the things that they've done, they would have to call each endpoint, and that's lots of data. The SOTN API organizes it so they just make one call, and it spits all the information they want in one place. And that's been really useful, especially for our web team who have got no idea what's going on with Pure, but they just really want that data. And finally, it's great for the centralized upgrades. Every time Pure gets upgraded, at the moment, the Pure API has 4 versions. After a year, you're going to have to do something with your API, and you're forced to upgrade, basically. Rather than have all the teams upgrade, just upgrade the SOTN API, and then all the systems get it doesn't even affect them. They don't have to worry about Pure upgrades, which is great. So yeah, as I mentioned, we mostly use the SOTN API to generate our content on our staff profile pages and on our project web pages that are linked. So we use this data, and it's really great for the digital team. Because I said, they don't know anything about research. They don't know anything. They just like make things. They look pretty. They want staff profile pages that look beautiful. They don't need to learn all that stuff, but they want all our rich data to make use of it. Otherwise, people are going to have to make their staff profile pages another system and put the data in more than once in the same places. And it's great that the digital team could just focus on creating these great web pages and spend less resource going, oh, what's the API? It needs to be upgraded now. We hadn't planned for this. It's like, oh, but we want something in Pure, so we're upgrading Pure. Now you're forced into this situation that you haven't planned out. So it's not great. So doing it this way has worked really well for us. And basically the digital team are kind of untouched by anything we do, which is fantastic. So this is one of our staff profile pages. This is John. He's a professor in medicine, and he's a delight because he lets me use his face on everything I present at. All the training materials, just John everywhere. So he's lovely. And he does lots of things, and he fills out forms. He's one of the best academics because he'll actually use Pure, and he'll fill out every field, even if you don't want him to. So here's all of John's stuff, and you think like this is how our web pages look. How much of that is data driven? All of it. So all of this comes from Pure, except our supervision feed, which was a bit dodgy. We don't talk about that one. So that comes directly from Banner because we couldn't quite get it to fit in Pure what we wanted it to show on our web pages. But every single other feed comes from comes from our Pure, and they do most of it in their personal profile. So the research interest is just a text box that we added in the text resource, the biography, the teaching interest. These are all things that are just like text boxes they could fill out. And the fact that they can go in and just edit the data there and it just feeds it over, that's great. And then all of their public projects are synced in and linked, and they're shown, and they link to separate project pages. And you can basically just build anything you want using the Pure API. If the data's there, you can get out and put it somewhere else. So that's lovely, isn't it? So the next one, which is probably the one we're probably most known for being a pain in the ass about, is the custom ePrints connector. Because Pure does have an ePrints connector, but we chose not to use it. So you've got Pure, and then we've got our custom ePrints center, and it sends the data that's public and validated into ePrints. So Southampton, we're quite attached to ePrints as a repository because we made it. ePrints is open source, customizable, and our ePrints connector is the same. It is open source and customizable. So we can use data from other systems and basically Pure other systems and build a really rich repository with a rich data set. And we can make it look anything we want. And we've got granular control over any policies we change. So if we change anything, want to do something different, we can just feed the data slightly differently, render it something differently. And that feeds into our ePrints. And then a bit of a disclaimer, we're really fussy. We could have just got the off-the-shelf one, but we're just a pain in the ass, really, as Southampton. Just want to be different with our ePrints. So to talk a little bit more about the Elsevier ePrints connector, and this is what Jeremy from Elsevier was helping me with, is the difference between the two, because they're both usable, just ours is just more customizable. So we're very flexible, just do whatever we want. There's some customization in the Elsevier ePrints connector, but it's limited by what's in this thing called mods, and it's basically a list of fields, and if you want something, you've got to request it, so it's time consuming to do that, whereas we're just like, well, if it exists, you just shove it over here. The ePrints connector we use uses the Pure API, which is linked to the versioning and the upgrades, whereas the Elsevier ePrints connector actually uses the ePrints API, so it's actually unaffected by upgrades. Then our syncs are slightly different. We run ours daily, so after 5 o'clock, we run all our data and sync it into ePrints, whereas the Elsevier one is linked to the preserved content update job, which syncs like every 10 seconds. So ours is just different. It just fits in better with our administrative processes that at the end of the day, everything is signed off and we sync it to ePrints. And then no changes happen throughout the day. But probably that might be due is that we have trouble with the changes API because the sync jobs change everything all the time. And we can't tell what's new and what isn't because it looks like everything's new. And we don't want to rerun the whole of ePrints every day because that will just be running all the time. So that's one thing that is a bit of a thing, but it works well with our administrative process anyway. But it's just nice to just have all this stuff and just make it however we want. So we just have loads of data, really customizable, works well for us, and it's really flexible. And the Pure API, our technical team don't mind using it, which is strong praise. Like you can't really get much. It's like, do they like? Are you happy using it? I don't mind using it. Oh, good. So they're really happy using it. Oh, ooh, spoilers. Jeez, look. All right, custom software. So this is the last section of things that we do for our downstream systems. So we have a group based in our electronics and computer science departments who are like kind of spin out, but they're internal. And I don't really know quite what they do. But they're called the research software group. And essentially you can cost them into grants and they'll make stuff for you, which is great that we have this. And we encourage them to do this and they can do everything they want. So if you've got some software that you want to make for a grant, rather than trying to think, oh, I need to hire a postdoc that's got the right skills, or I need to hire someone, or I need to outsource this. And it's a bit of a nightmare. So we have this team that you can cost into grants and do that. And that's worked really well for these 2 bits of software I'm about to show you. But the only con for this we found was that because of the rolling API upgrades, it doesn't work well with a funding cycle when you're applying for a grant. So that's not ideal. But apart from that, it does work quite well. But especially during ref, we were upgrading quite often. And then all of a sudden they were out of service and they didn't have anyone to do the work. They hadn't costed it because we weren't expecting that. But other than that, works really lovely. So one of the tools is the activity mapper. So basically the universities, loads of people everywhere, they're all doing things, lots of outreach, all the stuff that they're doing. How do you keep it? And we do encourage people to put activities into Pure and they put events in. But it's difficult to search, to see what people are doing, rather than just the person doing it, or you're trying to search for keywords. It's difficult to know outreach. You kind of want to know who's doing stuff with schools. So what would you search in Pure for that? People looking at people in schools. It's a bit strange. So they decided to make an activity mapper, and they integrate in Pure by taking the activity data and then all the people and linking it together and be able to build a tool where people can then actively search about what they're doing by adding a little bit of additional data that they have in there. So again, it's encouraging this enter once, use many times approach. There's lots of additional data we don't keep in Pure, for example, like related to audience types, like if they're at school, what age range, but they can add that into this tool. So the Pure data syncs in, they add more data, and then they can build beautiful things like this. So this is like a little map. So I'll show you, I didn't want to do a live presentation of this, it went terribly wrong. So I've got some little pictures. So there's my mouse pointer, and you go, oh, I want to click on a school. We're gonna go. Oh, it's like magic. So you click on a school, and you go, oh, that's nice. So this has happened at the school. What events have they had? Oh, they've had like a little event at the bottom. What's that? Let's have a look. And then they can go, oh, look at this event. All these schools attended this event. That's really great. There's a little note about what they did and what age range it was and things. It's like, oh, wouldn't it be great to talk to the person that arranged this? I'd like to do something like that. I have no idea how I'd even start. At the bottom you see is Jess Burrell, who actually is the champion for Activity Mapper. She does all these events. Wouldn't it be great to know more about her? A little sneaky finger. And then you get all her details, and you've got her email address, and you can see all the events she's coordinated and participated in. And you can go, well, this person's a key contact for me to speak to. And she probably knows all these schools. So it's just a beautiful thing that started from like just the activity data in Pure, and you can just build it into something crazy like this. It's very nice. There we go. And the email, in case you didn't see. Oh, there's one more step apparently that I've forgotten about. You can even look at the activities and then see even more information. So it's just really good just to be able to link all this data together and add even more to it to make a really valuable tool for all of our academics to use. So it's really great. It's great for finding all the different contexts, encourages this enter once, use many times approach, gives people the motivation to use our systems. And the data is pulled from Pure and it's stored in like a weird version of ePrint. So it's how it actually works. But in the future, we want to use like more keywords to try and fill in those fields that they're filling in Activity the Mapper, because we're kind of jealous of their data. It's like they've made this really nice thing, got even better data. It's like, I wish my data would look like that. So we want to feed it back into Pure eventually using the right API. So that's kind of like the long-term plan for that. Oh no, we'll see what happened with that in a minute. But the next tool isn't live yet. God knows what's underneath that. Let's scroll down on the actual one I've got here. There it is. Oh yeah, so it basically just allows people to search. So we sync in data from Pure about all the people, the external logs, especially people doing government department-based things. Because with these kind of things, it's always who you know rather than like being great at how you are. It's always like, oh, I know Frank, he'll let me know about this government department thing, get me in touch with the right policymakers. But how do you find these people if you don't know them? Especially if it's another department, if you're doing interdisciplinary stuff, you might know everyone in medicine or know everyone in social sciences. So how do you do this? So the idea is that you get a researcher to add their policy data into Pure, all the activities they do. That syncs into the policy mapper. And then a second researcher can wander along and see that and then ask to be introduced, basically. And if it's appropriate, the researcher can then make an introduction. And it's just great that you have all this data in Pure and it requires no extra data from the users. They just sucks it all in from Pure, and then people can search it and then find these connections really easily. And so that's not live yet, but it'll be really good when it is. Oh yeah. So the main issue they have though is the ridiculous amount of external organizations we have, carnage. It's constantly data cleaning, but the data quality interface is going to be fantastic for us. And we've only really just started using it now, but the testing has gone really well. I think that's really going to help this tool. It's not been rolled out yet because of the mass amount of NIHRs we have, but eventually we'll have less and then it'll be much more usable. So the last thing is about the future of our API. So we're really interested in like using it to maybe make some dashboards and reporting that can then, but we want to use the actual reporting module, and the data story is more useful for us. But we do have some siloed data, and the fact that you can get this data out of the Pure API is great because it means that you can then take your data, because we have pre-awards in our Pure. If we want to look at like success rates and then look at the grants that happen, then look at the outputs that came out of it, we couldn't do that just in Pure. But if we can take the data that we have in Pure and attach it to other data, then we can make some really nice dashboards that actually kind of show you the whole research portfolio and the research story. And finally, we'd like to do some like ref preparation stuff in a similar way. Our HR data is very much on its own, apart from the data that we sync in, but it's about independent researcher tracking. It's just outside, and the way we could do that is by taking the data that's really good in Pure and attaching it to the rest. I think that's the last one. Oh no, I've gone too far. Come on.
Well, it kind of seems like it really wants our question.
But I really want that. I must show you this. So the last thing is about encouraging engagement. So we've got the this is our log-on charts. As soon as we turn on our staff profile pages, we had a massive spike in usage. So it just shows you that you give them more reasons to use it. They're actually going to log in and use it rather than void you in corridors. But yeah, that was the last one.
Perfect. Thank you so much.